Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti. Today we are going to talk about Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma, the principles that are important for us, how we as people respond to it in the environment that we live in. For the past several years, I have been hearing on mainstream media that Christians are being persecuted around the world. Muslims are as it is unhappy. They are always complaining. And I'm not complaining about that, I'm making a statement about it. But somewhere along the line, Hindus I have never heard complain about their state of affairs or the state of being that they are in. And I wonder why. But in reality, if you look at it, currently as we see the media and the politics, globally India and Hindus are under attack. Whether it's BBC, whether it's Economist, New York Times, Washington Post, political leaders, they all sermonize India about human rights and violation of human rights, what it must do. And that kind of kicks up in my emotion that why we are being sermonized where the problem lies somewhere else. To discuss this matter today, I have great privilege and I'm very delighted because this particular problem starts with the campuses. In the college campuses, are Hindus organized? Answer is perhaps no, not as well as others are. Hinduism, as we all know, is a way of life. Hindus don't hate anybody because in our faith and in our curriculum, in our behavior, everything is fine, regardless of who you pray to. All our deities reside in the same temple. Just because you offer to Mahadurga or Kali or Ganeshji, and you did that puja and you came out, rest of the gods don't come behind you to kill you. The important part here is that we worship whatever inspires us. We are not the monotheistic faith that my way or highway. It's just as it is when Christians say Jesus is the only way, I have no problem with that. I have a problem when they say that we are wrong about what we do. Same way if Allah is supreme, good for you. I have no problem with that because we do not hate any other religion because we are a monotheistic polytheism and in which you worship and pray to whatever you want. But when they talk about their way, then we become kafirs or non-believers, and that introduces an element of conflict. Thanks to science and technology, the Sanatan principles are getting more welcome in the world around us, and to that end, we Hindus have to do something more about it. Not proselytize, but definitely propagate and talk about it. Because if we don't talk about ourselves, then we get defined by others. To discuss this matter, I have great privilege in welcoming three young people who represent Hindu Students' Council. I have great pleasure in welcoming Nikunj Trivedi. He is the chairman of Hindu Students' Council. Sohini Sircar, I promised to pronounce her name in Bengali. I hope I did justice to that. I have great pleasure in welcoming Agarwal, who is the board of HSC in Rutgers University and the national member of the board as well. So the three of you are here, and I'm personally very grateful that you could make the time, and I'm delighted that you are here. So to kick off the discussion, and I wanted to ask all three of you, but starting with Nikunj, you are the chairman. I will give you the call for that. How did the Hindu Students' Council get established? And what is it? Where was the need felt to do that? Because you are all students of this great country. So it is important for us to know, how did the Hindu Students' Council get established? What was the motivation for doing this? And how is it doing?
Great. Well, Vibhuti, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to come to the studio and talk about what we do and why it's so important. So Hindu Students Council is the largest pan-Hindu youth organization in North America. We have about 35 chapters. We started in 1990. Then, as you mentioned earlier, see, if we don't represent ourselves, somebody else is going to define us. So in the early 90s, students were concerned about what our tradition is. They wanted to understand what our tradition is. There was a lot of I would say the misconceptions about Hindu Dharma, what it is. There were caste, cow, curry type of things. So three students felt that there was a need to have our representation on campus. And that's how the movement began. And since then, we've had over 200,000 students that have attended HSC programs over the last 30 years. This is our 30th anniversary year. So, it's been a great pleasure to be as part of HSC as a chairman recently, but also since my college days at Rutgers when I was a student there. So HSC is a movement that provides the opportunities for Hindu students and non-Hindu students to learn about our culture, heritage, and our way of life.
That's brilliant. Now, we know about one thing is that you guys are organizing Holi for Hindus, right?
Holi for Unity.
Holi for Unity. And that's very important because I have heard about an event or a movement being launched for Holi against Hindutva. Now, are you reacting or how are you positioning about yourself as a Hindu Students' Council? Sohini.
Sure. So so Holi for Unity is a movement that has been created by students. It's been fueled by students, and we're really trying to show what the meaning of Holi actually is. That it's about celebrating unity, it's about spreading love, it's about color, excitement. So what we're trying to do is really take Holi back and bring it back to what its original meaning is and the root of the actual festival.
Your colleague from Yale University or Yale College, as you may call it, she is the one who is leading Holi against Hindutva agenda. Now, that throws a very interesting element to me because I have not understood, or as I understand, Hindutva. There is nothing evil about Hindutva, in my opinion. There is nothing evil about Hindutva. Why is it that the Western media characterizes us or defines us that if you are Hindutva guy, you must be evil?
So I think there's a lot of misperceptions about Hindu Dharma. I think that oftentimes people don't understand this concept of being able to worship one God in many different forms. And when people see something that is foreign to them, they don't understand that concept. They oftentimes will try to bully or make fun of that kind of concept. And I think a lot of this Hindu phobia that we see is just really a lack of understanding. And so I think what we do for Hindu Students Council is to continuously help people understand the way we worship, the way we believe, and that it's not so different from how other people believe. You know, if someone believes in one God, we also believe that. We just believe that since God can take many different forms, that we can be able to worship in many different forms. So we work hard to try to dissuade people from just making Hindus seem like they're weird or strange or scary. It's none of those things. And so we work to show that Hindu Dharma is a faith of love and unity.
Harsh, you are from Rutgers University, right? Mm-hmm. And Rutgers, New Jersey is home to many, many Indians here. Mm-hmm. And I also know that Rutgers professor is rampantly against Hindus, and I don't want to give her publicity by mentioning her name here. You know, and the rest of people know about it. Where does that get inspired from, and what are you doing in the university to contest that part of the wrong definition of who we are?
So as Rutgers HSC, a lot of the things that we do on campus are geared towards helping Hindu students as well as educating others who are non-Hindu as well about the faith and the beliefs that we have. And so a lot of times, we'll have discussions about stories, and we'll have discussions. So, for example, some of the things that have been talked about have been concerning some of our epics, like the Ramayana. And so we'll have discussions around that topic, and we'll talk about, even if it's a controversial topic, as Hindus, we need to, figure out for ourselves as well, as part of the younger generation, kind of what it means as well as understand it fully. So we'll have those discussions on campus, and we'll get that clarity. We'll invite speakers as well who are knowledgeable in the topic. So we, for example, a few weeks ago, we had a speaker come in and talk about the Sanskrit and how ancient India contributed so many different things to even the modern world. And so we'll have these discussions and topics and events as well beyond that to kind of give that education and let other students know what the truth is.
Share with me, I would like to know from each one of you, because each one of you belong to different universities, you have had your own experience. How are the Hindu students responding to the call of HSC to unite? Whoever wants to begin that.
Sure. So I can share a few thoughts on that. I think generally what happens is Hindus generally are divided. There are a lot of different sects, a lot of different sampradayas. There are a lot of different ways of doing things. So when you come from different backgrounds, the challenge you face is like, okay, while I pray to Kali, I pray to Ganesha. How do you put that together? So what we try to provide is a platform where first of all stress on the historical aspects, stress on the fact that all of these are different forms, as Sohini mentioned. These are different forms of the same oneness, essentially. So I think that resonates with a lot of people. What's also important is we have to make things relevant in today's world. Okay, why is this book called the Bhagavad Gita relevant in today's life? How can I solve my issues, my problems? So when we have that call is very resonating, and then students come together. It's also about togetherness, celebration of festivals, and making sure the right information is shared. You had mentioned about the Rutgers professor, so if I may entertain you on that. Essentially what happens is sometimes there are certain agendas that some of these academics have that are frankly anti-Hindu. And their words are very mistranslated. They mistranslate certain things for their own particular agenda. And as a result, Hindus get confused, and non-Hindus get confused too. So our job as HSC is to provide the right type of education to say, hey, this is not what Hindu Dharma is. Just like every other faith has an opportunity to talk about their tradition, we should be having the same opportunity without being ridiculed.
Absolutely, and that's what brings me to another subject matter there that like Nikunj mentioned about being ridiculed. And how do you address that? I mean, during your student time, did you encounter scenarios like this kind of ridicule? And what did you do about it?
So I think all students that are Hindu students that are in the US have all probably faced some kind of ridicule at some point. And I think it's really important to be able to give those students the knowledge and the ability to be able to stand up and not feel like they're being bullied or cower in the corner, but instead be able to stand up and say, no, that's not you're characterizing this incorrectly. And sometimes that comes from a professor, sometimes that ridicule comes from a teacher, sometimes it comes from other students, and sometimes it comes in the form of a question. So we really work hard to try to help students understand the reason why we do certain things. For example, at our HSC events, we will oftentimes have sessions where we say, why do Hindus do blank? And so a lot of students don't know the answers, like why do we wear a bindi? Someone might try to make fun of a student that way, but when the student can stand up and say, this is the reason why, and it's not something to make fun of, that's when we can really empower our students, our young people, to stand up against bullying.
Harsh, coming to the same topic again, what kind of dissonance you have experienced personally and collectively as an organization? Because what happens most of the time is that we Hindus are generally not proactive. We generally react. And that's what is our biggest challenge. Because those who are detractors of our faith, they have a plan. They have an agenda. We may believe in Aman Ki Asha and believe in the general goodness of people. Not everybody has that. That's why there are words, non-believers and kafirs. That's where we fit in. And thus, we Indians and Hindus particularly end up being in a happy hunting ground for the others to attack. Your thoughts on this particular thing you have experienced?
So I think individually, Sohini mentioned kind of some of the similar things. I think every Indian American, Hindu American student faces those. But as an organization, I think one thing that gets, especially recently with the political climate here as well as in India, there have been times where it feels almost a responsibility of Hindu students and Hindu organizations to apologize or make statements coming out against something that's happening, almost a world away. A lot of these students have never even, maybe they haven't been to India, maybe some of them don't even know what's going on. And so it's a lot of also the things that we do in HSC is give a platform and community to these students. So, if one person by themselves, it's relatively easy for them to, back away or feel scared and back away. But when you give a community, when you have organizations and you can see other students who can respond, stand with you, I think that becomes a really powerful tool to combat that.
Thank you very much. What is important here is one of the things which I have had to address. Why do we have so many gods and why do we worship idols? And this happened very recently, and it is an encounter that I've had many times when people ask me, why do you worship so many gods? And I said, there is no too many gods, there is only one. If God is the creator of the entire universe, He created you, me, rats, rodents, and snakes, all of it. And He gave what I call life-saving forces. Life-saving forces, and I gave the example of only 3 items. One is sun. Now, sun is a source of energy for us. If God gave us sun, and nobody has seen God on the planet Earth, nobody, and that I can say without any equivocation on that. If God created sun, it's a form. It rises in the east, sets in the west, and the cycle continues. So is there anything wrong in my saying, thank you, God, for giving us the source of energy? We would be in ice age otherwise, dead, not existent. And then I give the second example, the omnipresent, omniscient air, non-form. It has no form. Air has no form. It's here right now, without which we won't even exist for a nanosecond, with due respect to Jesus, Muhammad, and Ram, or whatever deity you pray to. That's the important part. There's a non-form. So can I express my gratitude to God for giving us air? And the third is water. 80% of our body is water. We might survive without water for a little while, but ultimately we'll all die. And water is amazing. It assumes the form of whatever it goes into. That's what the concept of our Hinduism is all about. Is not about the one ending with the another. It is a coexistence of various life-saving forces. So, it's a very fascinating concept our belief system is. We have lost track of it. We'll talk about more of it right after this short break. Welcome back. This is the season of what the Hindi word is Fagun, the Holi thing, right? March is the month where we all celebrate Holi, the festival of colors. We have many festivals. Festival of colors, festival of lights, and what have you. The question here is that there is a concerted effort made by people who don't like us to call Holi against Hindutva. But I believe HSC is doing a great program or great initiative calling it Holi for Unity. Now, I would like to know from you that how are you approaching this big challenge? Because it's right around the corner and media will cover it. I know one thing for sure, that my son goes to Manhattan on Holi Day and there is a massive joy that he comes back with, celebrating with his friends, Americans, non-Americans, and everybody else. So there is a definite concept of Holi that needs to be narrated. So how are you guys, what are you doing about it? And and everybody needs help. What can elders do to support your cause? Because this is important. I think this is the start of a long-term movement. Because you can't remain reactive to what the opposition does, but set the agenda. It's like playing cricket first innings, you set the target for the opponent. So it has to be a proactive play. Share with us, each one of you, what this Holi for Unity is about. How are you spreading the word around the country in various campuses? And what, if any, help you need? And what can we do for you here? Nikunj, you want to take the first shot?
So I will definitely. Thank you. And as you mentioned, it's about joy. So Holi for Unity, first of all, the website is www.holiforunity.org. The idea is that about 70 college student organizations, including HSC, are participating in this massive effort across college campuses in 3 ways. We're saying learn, embrace, and respect our Hindu traditions. our Hindu traditions are not for sale, they're not for misuse and commercialization. Just like we respect every other tradition for every other religion, our traditions should also be respected. So that's the overall message for Holi. The idea is that let's unite, let's celebrate the true meaning of Holi, which is we're getting rid of differences and celebrating joy, unity, universalism, pluralism, things like that. So we launched this idea, and as you mentioned, there are concerted efforts to kind of defame Holi. The way I look at it is somebody draws a line, we have to draw a bigger line rather than erasing their line all the time. So the idea is that the positive message, the positive ideas of Holi are resonating very well with a lot of students, so many people have signed up. And what I would say is that how can the community help? The community can go to our website and sign up as a partner organization. And when they are celebrating Holi, we would like them to take selfies with a hashtag Holi for Unity, share it with us. So our website has all the information that you need on how to celebrate with us Holi for Unity.
That's brilliant. Now in India, the Holi is celebrated totally differently, right? Because it's almost summer, throwing colors, and in whether it's a dry or wet, doesn't matter, because after that you're going to have a big rub-off, so to say, with water. But in this country, it's winter time. So how would you approach the celebration of Holi with, considering there is a coronavirus going on? I think the evil will die down with it, with this entire Holi for Unity purpose, because that's important for us. How are you going to celebrate that? How are you going to carry the message to Indians as well as non-Indians? Because including them into this effort is key, because they must know that, hey, it was just a color, gale milan, and sharing some sweets and saying Holi hai, right? How are you approaching the entire celebration, the issue of Holi for Unity? Whose unity are you talking about?
Sure. So one thing you brought up is that we have Holi during the winter time when it's really cold here in North America. And one thing that we really enjoy doing in many schools is we will actually spend the day of Holi learning about what Holi is. And we talk about history, we'll oftentimes bring in other speakers, we'll really sit down and have a discussion about Holi. And I think this is something that's really unique that we do in Hindu Students Council, is that we really try to understand the reasons behind the festival. We don't just go and have fun and celebrate. We do that also, but we learn the meaning for it as well. So that's one thing we do. And then oftentimes some students will play Holi in the cold. Other times students will do it a little bit later in the year. And we do the same thing. We get colors, we get water, and we just have a great time. When we talk about unity, I really love seeing that it's not just Hindu students that come out to Holi. It is students and community members, and everybody from all over just comes and is a part. It doesn't matter what race you are, what religion you are, what gender you are. Everyone is welcome to come and participate. And I think that's really the message of Holi for Unity, is that it's open to everybody to celebrate. And when I visited Boston once, and during Holi time, and I was on the subway, and every single person that was coming onto the subway was just colored. And it was just wonderful to see that a small group of students at Boston University was able to color a whole city.
That's brilliant. I didn't know about that. I know only Boston, I remember, because in 1995 or 94, the World Cup of soccer happened in US. And that was my dream come true. I went to see the World Cup there. So the train was full of everybody, different colors of country colors. And that's an important thing about the color. Color cuts across religious barriers. Everybody, whether it's black, white, yellow, maroon, red, blue, these are colors, they don't have religion written on it. It doesn't belong to a specific community. And that's the message of Holi, which I love, because you can wear whatever you want. Whatever color, every day we wear different colors. So how would you, Harsh, translate this message of universality and unity to everybody? The color has no religion. How would you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it really well. The
Thank
colors are, they're vibrant, they're diverse, and they're very representative and symbolic of every individual on a campus. And so these students coming together and a lot of times what you'll see is students learn from each other, right? And they're able to grow from their different perspectives. And it's very, Holi as a celebration is very symbolic of that, because people, you get one color and then you get another color from someone else, and you're kind of growing, together. Even though there's a diverse group of people who are all celebrating this festival together, everyone, ends up with all of these different colors. Usually these celebrations, for me, in Pittsburgh, which is 300 miles away from home, there were only like a handful of times when I could actually celebrate things in the traditional way that we would at home. And it was really cool for me, back, I was lucky that Pitt had a really good Holi celebration. And so there would be hundreds of students and community members and faculty who come and celebrate together. And it was really a fun time to celebrate something with my friends that, I would do normally with family, and in a traditional way. We would do that with my college friends and everyone. And it was a great time. It was a very different experience, but great overall celebration.
That's brilliant. Now, the thing here I wanted to also check with you was, since you have formed the organization Hindu Students Council, have you met with resistance from the university administration, or what has been the response to your initiatives? Because you are actually showing them a different path beyond the established norms, right?
Absolutely. So it's interesting to say that, because I think in America, religion is actually a pretty interesting topic. Most universities are pretty open. I think the issue lies with us as a community, that we don't demand it and we don't own it. So I would say that most of the universities are pretty open. If you want to do a Hindu Students Council chapter, or you want to celebrate Hindu festivals, most of the large universities and even smaller universities, even including Catholic universities, they're pretty open for Hindus to celebrate their festivals, to practice their tradition. The issue lies on us, that we are usually shy. We are usually saying, oh, we should, it's all the same. Why do it? Why rock the boat? But other people are very welcoming, actually, generally speaking.
And I definitely like that, because in my experience of things, I have often been told that by my American friends that your faith is so remarkably liberal religion, because you have no mandates, you have no strictures, you don't have must-dos, and you don't have don't-dos. So the question is, such a wonderful liberal philosophy, pray or you don't, doesn't matter. What you do is eventually that decides you. And I'm not disrespectful. I make an inquiry that if a confession in a papal church or wherever can absolve you of all your sins, why can't we know that our acts define us? What we do today is the outcome. We'll do something for us tomorrow. And that's the beauty of our philosophy that you rightly said we have been hesitant about talking. And it's not about proselytization. It's about making your voice heard. And I'll give you a very simple example from a corporate world. That's something that you can take home with that. When I was working with American Express in India, I was very good at structuring products to meet client needs. And success has many parents. So a lot of people were taking credit for the product structuring, because the bank used to make a lot of money, the clients used to be very happy, until one day my country manager called me and he said, hey, you are the one who put this product together, right? I said, yes. Why the hell don't you tell me that? Because if you don't tell me, how the hell will I ever know about it? That's something that triggered my mind, that it's not about blowing your trumpet, but letting others know who you are, what you do, and what you did. That's what makes people know. So if we have great virtues in our faith, if we don't absorb it, don't share that. And you very rightly said earlier on that we go into the background of why, and then it makes sense. So let me share with you, and this is a sharing moment. I'm very delighted. Way back in 1982, 83, sometime in August, in Bankers Club in India, in Bangalore, there was a Harvard-educated management consultant who said something remarkable, 1983 September. And he said, Indians do not need to go to Harvard, Yale, or Columbia to study management. If only we studied, and that was his focus on, if we studied our Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita, all the postulates of Mahabharata or life is all there. Sacrifice, deceit, situations. And we don't need to go to Harvard or Yale or wherever Ivy Leagues. We need to just study our own text. And sadly enough, we miss to read our own texts. So our texts have become as a storybook. And that's how Western people define us as monkey god or whatever. In reality, Krishna has been told that he's a womanizer. Those who attack us, they say Krishna was a womanizer, he was one Radha and thousands of other girls, but he was introducing the concept of Maya. That people did not know, nor did we convey. That's very important. Hang on, guys. We will be back right after this short break. Welcome back. Now we will talk about how does any movement attain sustainability. I'll take the analogy of cricket for that matter. Since we are all a cricket playing country, we are a big cricket playing country. So, you play T20. The entire game of T20 is remarkably different than 50 over one day. And it's totally different when you play a test match, 5-day test match. You pace yourself. You set the agenda. You control the pace of your game. Whether you are the first 10 overs, the next 10 overs, the next 10 overs, or the last 10 overs. That's what I'm talking about. Life is all about. So when you are 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, so now you are HSC here. Instead of being a reactive to the environment that it throws at us, how do you plan to make this entire movement a sustainable movement? Because it doesn't end with one Holi. It will require a really focused, dedicated effort to make the whole thing more relevant for everybody. And I can tell you one thing for sure, that the first generation Indians who came here, they were busy working and making money. Perhaps they did not spend enough time with you. What can they do now? And I definitely believe that the first generation, your parents and my peer group, must contribute to your efforts, because you are doing something which we didn't do, right? So kudos to you guys. I compliment you for that. Your thoughts? Nikunj, I'll start again with you.
You mentioned some very good things about the pacing. So usually what happens is we're very reacting. So this time what we decided to do, as I said, draw a bigger line and say, let's take this, let's embrace it. And let's go forward and say, okay, every year, all these Hindu organizations, all these Hindu students are going to come together and have a conversation about what is Holi, why Holi is important, and celebrate it together to share the message to the world that we as Hindu community first are united, and we want you to join us in these efforts so that we can end a lot of conflicts in the world, and also teach people that Hindu Dharma has a lot of great things to offer. It's not just some misconceived extremist ideology. There are extremist people in every single tradition. But what's important for us to keep is there's a lot of misconception about who we are. As you mentioned earlier, the moment you say, I'm a proud Hindu, you're branded as some Hindutva extremist and things like that. So this is an opportunity for us to educate people about the true meaning of our tradition. So we want everyone's help. As you mentioned, the first generation came here. Now you can donate to us, give us the funding that we require to start new chapters, to open up new chapters, to move this campaign forward, number one. Number two is participate. Come, join us, connect us with temples, Indian organizations, Hindu spiritual organizations that can help us and join in our efforts. So that's why we need help.
Your thoughts on the same subject, same question.
Sure. So it's really exciting to see how students are really embracing HSC and learning, and how they're also pulling their parents in to come and learn with them. So we do have a conference coming up called the Hindu Leaders of Tomorrow, and we are encouraging not only students to come, but also have their parents coming as well. We're going to have sessions there for students, high school students, college students, and also community members and parents that need to learn and want to learn how to support their students. And so we have so many different parents and community members that are coming to us and asking us, how can we help you make a chapter at a nearby university or high school student? How can we support the students? Where can I go to donate? And we encourage all of that. We open up a lot of our activities, even though they're student-led, we open them up to the community because we want parents and that first generation of Hindus that came to the United States to also to be able to continue their learning.
Harsh, to continue the learning part of it is that creating awareness. This is something which I'll share with you and you can think about what can be done about it. But we in Long Island, several years ago when my son was a school-going kid and that peer group, we started a thing called Puja Group. It was driven by one objective, is to make our children understand why does a Havan happen? What festivity of that month, because every month there is something or the other, right? So why that particular thing was being done. So we did it for several years. Remember, the focus was not lunch. Focus was not food. It was just one rice, one dal, one raita, and one sabji. That's it. So that nobody's competing कि हमने ये खाना serve किया. The objective was learning your own belief systems, your own processes. That was important. Think about activities like you are doing. So families get together, not more than 10, but every or 12 for the year. So many activities that can be done, and these children, they become lifelong friends because they began to see the unity of purpose there. So share with us, Harsh, your thought process. Is that what are the challenges that you face in relation to including your parents or the first generation guys here? Are they still Nirankari kind of a thing? Tum apna karo, I don't care. Do you experience that?
No, I wouldn't say that. I
Okay.
think a lot of parents, they try to help. Right, they are really passionate about Hinduism. I think sometimes it can be an issue in terms of passing down the information. So I have seen a lot of students on campus who, they were brought up Hindu, but maybe they didn't fully understand the meaning of certain things. And so that's why HSC is a really powerful venue for us to be able to have those discussions where we have explained those meanings. And so the students, even if they didn't get that, while growing up, they can discover that identity in college and for themselves. And I think that's another place that we want the community members to help is, every parent wants their kids to go to a university and go to college, or even in high school, right? And so we need help with students. We want you to encourage your students to join HSC. We want to encourage your children to start chapters if there aren't chapters, as well as join and contribute to the cause as well.
That's very true, because this has to be a movement of everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be part of that. That's remarkably required. It's not a required reading. It's like a required commitment, I would put it, because we are otherwise going to be marginalized. And as in one of my programs, I talked about, does Hinduism face an existential threat? Yes, 1.3 billion people are not going to vanish overnight from the face of the earth. So we are not facing a physical threat of vanishing away. But what we do fear can happen, that our passive attitude can make us irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You don't matter. We don't matter as Hindus because we are not part of any process. And that brings me to the political element of the discussion. Because while you are doing the spiritual and the community part of the work, in my opinion, you also should consider, if that's not part of your mandate or your objective, is to how get politically aligned. Now that is important considering the attacks that are happening on India, especially Hindus. Hindutva has been made, India has been made as if it is the ultimate evil. Human Rights Commission consisting of Qatar, Pakistan, Afghanistan, they teach us about human rights. And that can't be anything bigger baloney than that. And I dare make that statement. The point of the matter is, how do you respond to the political challenge? Audrey Tusquet's entire thing is political, and she uses Hindu religion to trash us. How do you plan to go political in addition to being education driven or learning driven?
So I would say two things. One is, as a 501c3 organization, we do not take any political stances because we cannot.
Okay.
Having said that, we do try to educate, whether it's politicians or university administration. So you mentioned Rutgers, for example. So we've had the conversations with our Dean of Student Affairs and as well as different departments to say, hey, look, what she's saying is, we're not concerned about the political side of it, but what she's doing is she's taking Hindu Dharma with her in her political agenda. That's the problem, because that creates Hindu phobia, fear of Hindus. This Hindu religion is like a very horrible religion with violent mobs, things like that, and that's not acceptable. Because if that happened to others, there's a whole thing about Islamophobia, right? So there's university laws and university efforts to protect Muslims and Jews from attacks on Islamophobia, attacks related to anti-Semitism, things like that. So Hindus also deserve the same thing. What have we done? Are we indispensable? Are we dispensable in that sense? Do our lives not matter? So that's the kind of advocacy that we do on campuses to make sure that the administration understands that Hindus are important. We are part of the society. We have a universal message that we have to give. Unfortunately, people like Audrey Trivedi, obfuscate that message. They confuse people about the message to create this, image of horrible Hindus in that sense.
Right, and that is the important part. Like we have Kali, we have Durga, we have many manifestations of, examples. Actually, these are all the whys and whos, how the whole thing operates. Because many of our gods or the deities, the gods have taken shape of a boar or a snake to solve a particular problem, and that's what is important to know, because your solution doesn't lie in one item. Hinduism is like, Hindu's temple is, if you take a modern example, is like a hospital. You go to the hospital and you meet a doctor whose services you need to address your concern, right? Rest of the hospital doesn't shoot you down because you didn't go to them. That's what the natural beauty of Hinduism is, that it doesn't matter who and what you pray to, but what you do that defines you. And that's the message that we need to talk about, that you cannot, and we need to talk about. America is at least listens. People listen, and we got to make them hear. Because I remember, shared the conversation, a senator once said, we love you Indians as immigrants to the country. You are educated, you are professionals, you have high median income, you take care of your children, you have family values, you are least problematic from a law and order point of view, and you ask for nothing. It's time to assert yourself. And what I'm seeing is the assertive Hindu gets blamed for being aggressive, and they get branded. How would you address that challenge?
So, as a part of a Hindu students group on campus, I found that being assertive has actually been so beneficial. So at Georgetown University, we started a small group of Hindu students together, and we would do puja in a small room. We, would kind of book different rooms. The carpet was unclean. We would take our murtis in a basket, and those murtis would then end up getting chipped. And so, these are issues that we realized we needed to address. So we went up to the administration and we asked them, we said, we Hindus would like a Hindu space, a dedicated space for us to go to on campus. We'd like to have a chaplain on campus. We'd like to get more funding for Hindu activities. And the more we asked, the more the Georgetown gave. And Georgetown is a Catholic university. It's a Jesuit university. But being assertive as Hindu students took us so far. We now have a chaplain at Georgetown's campus. We are now working on getting a dedicated Hindu space. We immediately got shifted into one of our own spaces that would be, more clean, and then having to go into random classrooms. So being assertive really takes us far, and I encourage all of us student groups to continuously work and ask people for the things we need, because we will get there.
I love it that we're talking about assertiveness, and that's what I say. I've always said, it's time for us Hindus to assert ourselves. Assertion doesn't mean defiance. There's a difference. Assertion is claiming that this is who you are. Assertion means drawing a Lakshman Rekha, this far and no further. So coming back to that, we have last 2 minutes now, Harsh, and I wanted you to address one part of the story here, is that in terms of sustainability, societies are made up of social element, political element, technology element, and economic element. See, everything is interconnected. So like Nikunj said earlier on, that we don't want distortion to happen. In 1 minute, tell me, what must happen now, going forward, for Hindu Student Council to make these assertions valid?
So I would say one thing is the students have to think critically. So talking about some of the things like division and trying to be unified, especially in the face of misinformation and attacks, every student needs to think critically, and HSC gives that opportunity and that venue for that. But I've seen a lot of my friends too who have said, who've fallen trapped to some of the news articles and the things that they've seen without thinking critically or without looking at potentially another perspective. And so the students need to look at it from that perspective, and from our angle we have to give them that venue and give them that support from the back.
Thank you very much. It has been a real pleasure meeting all of you and listening to all of you. Thank you all three. Harsh,
Sohini.
Sohini. I didn't forget your name. I was trying to say Sohini. And Nikunj, thank you very much for coming today, sharing your thoughts. And as I always say, every conversation must come to an end. This one comes to an end today, to continue again. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.